distractor of erasing and doing all that stuff, blowing and going over again. You just write with it. So there were the main prompt that you folks did was all pretty much the same, but obviously some folks are doing different ones based on makeups and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of hard to find universal things that would go with each of the prompts that would kind of apply to each class. A couple things struck me though with your group. Number one, everyone said that it was worthy literature. There were not any dissenters. Which, is fine. It's not that you had to write that it wasn't worthy to make me happy. Usually you'll get some dissenters going, yeah, no, I don't think so. Not appropriate. One thing, though, that did tend to be pretty applicable to all of the classes and most of the people, when we did like rhetorical analysis, you have your thesis statement. Thesis statement has the built-in rhetorical devices, as to this is what I'm going to cover, some type of diction, imagery, metaphor, things of that nature, and you have your argument. So you kind of have a built-in focus statement, subtopics that are going into your thesis. I would say, and some folks may not have known what your subtopics were going to be as you were starting to kind of put the essay together, because you're quickly trying to come up with some ideas and then execute it. The clearer you can be about what your subtopics are going to be, what the main points that you were going to hit, I would include that certainly within the introduction. So, you could have your thesis statement going, Slaughterhouse-Five should be deemed, or must be deemed as worthy literature, or, cannot be deemed as worthy literature. And then, the main elements of support, including, and then identify what those things would be. Certainly, that wouldn't be something that automatically detracts from an essay, and therefore you're going to be getting stuck with a 5 or a 4 or a 3. But one of the main elements that the AP readers are looking for, do you have a consistent argument throughout its focus? So if you say in the very beginning, this is what I'm going to do, and then you go through and do it, and you do that well, they certainly look upon that with a lot of favor. If you don't know what it is that you're going to write, then you got to figure it out as you do the body paragraphs. That's a tougher task to do. You certainly could always kind of go back and add what those subtopics are. But that would be one thing. I think with the rhetorical analysis, we don't really think about it as much because those subtopics are built into the thesis statement. But with the DRQ, with the synthesis, it'd be a pretty good idea, assuming you know what they are, to figure out what those subtopics would be. Keep in mind, and I think this is going to benefit a lot of people, when you do that AP exam on May the 15th, you do have those 15 minutes to look over the prompts before you actually start writing. So that can do a couple things. A, it gives you time to read the sources for the synthesis prompt. B, it kind of calms you down a little bit after doing the multiple choice. You kind of mentally get prepared to do the essay. But it also gives you a chance to kind of digest the prompts and kind of go into it, I think, a little bit more comfortable than you have 40 minutes, here's your prompt, go, where you're reading, diagnosing, brainstorming, and then writing all within those 40 minutes. Those extra 15 minutes, I think, kind of help out when it comes to that stuff. So, the general question. After we come back from spring break, we finish up stuff at the college essay, that first week back. Then we kind of go into what do we need to do to get ready for AP exam kind of mode. There is no rule that what first period does has to do the same thing as fourth period and seventh period. So not asking for answers now, but kind of think about what are areas that you feel that not that we need more work, but you want to go over some more things with, multiple choice, rhetorical analysis, synthesis, DRQ, and we can kind of focus on what aspects are going to work best for us. We're definitely doing one more significant multiple choice graded quiz assignment. After that one, then it's pretty much just kind of fine-tune things for us. But we'll certainly take a look at some more prompts and things of that nature, do more of a diagnosis of it in class. I don't really have any plans of additional TWAs. I don't think we need to try to break risks before, AP exam time rolls around and all that stuff. Plus, we could just have Ben and Sam create an argument and then we could take sides.
Yeah.
When we do argumentation in English, it's just them.
Just watching them.
Just them.
The gavel.
Depends on
I'll-
what
Say,
Yeah.
let's say, well,
I
let's
want
see.
the gavel because I feel like
Before we talk about the college essay stuff that you have in front of you, reminder about revision assistant. So you can submit that through tomorrow night. So it's not that it has to be done for tonight. Some people were going, I think like Heath was all excited because he said, ooh, it's an extra day. No, you just misinterpreted what Thursday night meant.
yeah.
So it's not Wednesday night, it's tomorrow night. So you submit tonight, that's fine. You submit Thursday night, that's absolutely fine. But you submit those to revision assistant. There's no need to do anything with Turnitin. just submitting it through Revision Assistant is the only requirement that you would have. You know, your signal check scores, you know, once you complete it, you certainly know where you'd be standing. And then at some point, I don't know if I'll have them done right after break is over or sometime next week, but I said I'll read through them and kind of give you an AP score of where you'd be falling, you know, with that ownership question. Any questions about that? All right, college essay. College essay. You got two things. One's a rubric that you don't really need to do anything with for now. But I just wanted you to see what the rubric was. This is not what's going to be used for your rough draft. Your rough draft is going to be completion points. There'll be participation grade, and you're going to get a couple of folks to peer edit it next week. Your rough draft we're going to do for Thursday of next week. When we come back on Tuesday, because today and tomorrow we'll pretty much go over college essays, the do's and the don'ts. Today's the do's, tomorrow's the don'ts. Tuesday when we come back, we're going to take a look at some sample essays and, you know, kind of critique them. You won't like them most likely, but we'll critique them, what they do well, what they could do a little bit better on. Wednesday of next week, you'll have laptops, you'll have some time to be able to kind of figure out what you want to do draft-wise. And then Thursday, you're going to come in with a copy and do some peer editing for it. And we'll just kind of go from there with it. So for Thursday of next week, rough draft. Your prompts are in the college essay packet. We'll start going over that here in a second. We kind of talked about this, I think it was yesterday when you had questions, Tuesday or yesterday about the due dates. Your final copy of your college essay is due for Monday the 29th. That would be a Monday night turn it in submission, all right? And that's one where, Bethany, you're asking about like declaration of academic integrity. We'll have one of those things set up for the college essay. Sadly, people have plagiarized that before. Monday's the due date, so you turn in on Monday the 29th, you get full credit, and it's 50 points. This does go in as an essay. It doesn't get scored as an AP essay. You're not going to go 4+ on your college application essay. It's going to follow this rubric, but it's still counts as 50 points. Should you submit it by Sunday night, the night before, 24 hours before, you get 5 points added. So it's like a little bonus that can happen. So you could get a 50 out of 50 plus 5, have a 55 out of 50 for that essay assignment. If you have a 40 out of 50, it could end up being 45 out of 50. So I don't care when you submit it, but if you want to submit it a day early, you can get some bonus points that way if you think that would work best for you. But Thursday is kind of like our first due date. College essay packet has really been pared down over the years, trying to just include like really the main stuff that we need instead of a whole bunch of garbage that we don't really look at. When you open up the page, it says at the top the 2017-2018 essay prompts. Don't be discouraged by that. I realize it is the year 2019 and you're going to be applying to schools in 2019-2020. They have not changed the prompts in the last 3 years. They usually go on a 3 or 4 year cycle. So 2017-2018 was when they had this set of prompts where they kind of tweak it. They have not changed it since. This is for the Common Application. Most schools that you're going to apply to use the Common App. Obviously, not all schools do, but we use the Common App essays as kind of our basis, since that's what most people will be using. If you know a school that you're going to go to, such as Temple, and offhand, I don't know if Temple uses the Common App or not. Let's say that they don't. But if there's a school that you know you are interested into applying that does not use the Common App, that has their own essay prompts, by all means you can go ahead and use those. We can fine tune the assignment to fit those requirements so that it's going to be useful for you. But thinking that most of you are going to be using the Common App, we're taking their 6 prompts that we have here. You choose whichever prompt you want to go with. All right. In a way, there's kind of 7 because if any of those 6 don't work, there's a 7th one where share an essay on any topic of your choice. So you can pretty much write about whatever you want. The difficult thing for folks is the 650 word limit. It's not a minimum, it's a limit. So you don't go beyond 650 words, which sounds, oh, that's not bad, because that's like a page and 3/4, but depending upon what it is that you're going into detail about, it can feel kind of limiting sometimes. So the 2 big changes for folks, I think especially for ISAP, for coming off and doing New York U's rhetorical analysis and things like that, you're not writing about yourself, me, I love to use those words, and it's not analytical. It's more narrative of you kind of sharing some kind of sliver of your life. It does not matter which prompt you go ahead and answer. I'll let you know. You you see for, like number one, some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful. It says in the 15-16 cycle, over 45% of Common App students use this question. Not many people use that question anymore. I think that statistic kind of like scared people away. Last year, 2018, 2019, this would be for Common App. This isn't just for like North Hills. 21% answered question number 2, the obstacles question would be counted. For number 5, discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth. 23.7% answered that one. And the most common prompt was number 7, just write something else. 24% did those. That doesn't mean anything. That's not going, therefore, 25% of you should write about that too. But it just kind of gives you an idea of what folks are writing about. You could kind of look at it in a couple ways, like, oh, I should do that one because other people are doing it and other people are getting into college. You could also kind of look at it in the sense of, well, if everyone's doing that one, I want to try to do something that's at least a little bit different. It doesn't really matter. I would say, like, if you know the number 5, 24% are doing that, you do want to make sure then that that accomplishment, that event, or that realization is going to be pretty significant. Because if Katie, the grad student, is reading all these essays about a sparking realization, oh, here comes another one, and that realization was, when I failed my first spelling test in 4th grade, I realized that I really needed to, blah, 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 blah. It's probably just going to give her that glazed over look, and she's going to move on to the next essay. So, not trying to force you into answering any particular question. You're going to go with what's going to work best for you.
Do you know the percent on number 4?
Not offhand, no.
Okay.
I bet it's fairly low.
Yeah.
Because I think, like, I can see folks being between question number 2 and question number 4. What's an obstacle that you've encountered, or a challenge that you've overcome, which is different from, boy, this is something I would like to solve. I think sometimes, I would expect that people could be a little hesitant to put themselves out here and say, all right, this is how I'm going to solve global warming, climate change, bipartisanship, those kind of heavy hitter things. Not that it has to be of that kind of significance, but I think people might be a little hesitant to put themselves out there. Or, what if that problem really is not all that significant, in other people's minds.
Yeah.
But no, those 3 are the only percentages I know offhand that I jotted down, number 2, number 5, and number 7. That's the main reason you're using the packet, is for the first 2 pages, so far as determining the prompt that you want to use. We're still going to use some other things from them, but most of what we're going to kind of take a look at today is hopefully just giving you a little bit of feedback and ideas as to what to write about, what not to write about, how to go about it, things of that nature. One thing before I get too far, I did want to kind of let you know, if you're wondering about, schools that I'm interested in applying to, on Google Classroom, where I have all the college essay materials up here at the front, the 3rd thing where it says Common App Chart, and Bethany, this can be your eye test, so feel free to read the top row for us. It's a large PDF file. It's 18 pages. Listed on here is every single university or college that uses the Common App. So if there's schools that you're interested in taking a look at, you could scroll through to try to find, what is there. So, for example, Allegheny College is on here. I would say that's one of the more, local schools. So it lets you know, number 1, it's co-ed, and then it gives you dates when it comes to early registration periods and things like that. These are a little outdated because it's going for the 2018-2019 school year, but information that would be significant to you later on, and I know we can't see all the chart and all that kind of stuff, but it lets you know whether they're looking at the SAT or the ACT, so they're taking the SAT and then look at the website. It'll let you know which schools want the essay with the SAT or the ACT. The vast majority are going to say without essay, but it also lets you know as you go over to the other parts, and up at the top it gives you ideas about recommendations. It lets you know how many teacher evaluations, how many teacher recommendations do you need. So Allegheny, if I scroll back down, it needs 1. One thing though it also mentions, CR means counselor recommendation. Does it require a counselor recommendation? Allegheny College does. So if you're sitting there going, I don't know who my counselor is, there's a pretty good chance
Just go find out.
that it's vice versa, that the counselor doesn't really know who you are either. So, yeah, before the end of the school year or beginning of next year, maybe seek your counselor out, build up a little bit of a relationship. So when it comes to, yes, I do know Sam, I can give a little bit more of a heartfelt recommendation as opposed to something else. Ben, do you know if Temple does the Common App?
Yes, I think they do.
So we can,
Fingers crossed.
double check just to see if they're on there.
Can we look up a school? Once we're done with Ben's.
We can look up like one. Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time.
Just do Control
Oops.
F and then type in Temple. Or Command F.
Yeah, but it's fun to scroll.
That's true.
Ah, there they are, Temple. Also, the Japan campus uses the.
You should go there.
You should go there, man.
No, that's.
Would you wanna look?
This is wild.
Really?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Command F and then just type in web. I don't want to waste your time. I think it's 2 W's or 2 B's.
Web College, like Gardner Web, or
It's like Web Institute of like New York or something like that.
there it is.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Yeah, we'll just say it's Web Institute. We'll see what they want.
Oh, that's 60. That's the application fee.
Yeah.
So that lets you know to apply there, $60.
Which 25?
Allegheny, I meant to mention, is 0. So that could be something to take a look at.
Yeah.
Wayne State University would be 0.
Did they accept-
ACT,
Yeah.
they want 2 teacher recommendations. They do want a counselor, and honestly, offhand, I forget what the other one is. MR.
Mr. One Mr.
Down at the very bottom is a run through as to what the whole chart means.
So did it say they wanted a common app?
Well, if they're on here, they want to come.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they need a mid-year report would be required as well. So if you're applying second semester, they would want to know what your first semester grades are from like senior year or junior year
Is that
or something
weird?
along those. No, that's pretty typical.
So don't fail yourself.
Yeah, don't fail.
Still try.
Sam's gonna fail.
You realize, but I do think there'll be a fair amount of useful stuff with it, assuming it loads up. There we go. Spell it right, Sam. I have no empirical data for this whatsoever. However, I feel like college is probably one of the more commonly misspelled words that show up when someone does their personal essay. I have a feeling that college and colleague tend to get
I don't know. I know it's called college.
switched back and forth. So be careful, when it comes to certainly that kind of stuff. You might have seen the number on the preview of the slides, but anyone have an idea? So the total amount of time that's spent by admissions officer or admission team looking over your application. So application, transcript, teacher recommendations, your personal essay, all of those things. What percentage of their total time do you think they would spend on the essay part of your college application? So do you think they spend 50%, 2%,
18%.
18%? That's a very specific number. Maybe about 18%, roughly 20. Higher,
45.
lower, no, 45.
I'd say a little bit higher than 20.
Oh, wait.
30,
80.
maybe like six.
You want
Yeah,
18
we
to
did
8?
the first 2 sentences.
Maria,
Like 30%. They could
30%.
also just like skim it. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure it does kind of happen a little bit, but it's about 33%. It's about a third, which I think is significant for you. To say that they're going to spend 80% of the total amount of time on your writing, I think is, that's high. But generally, I kind of think of your college application getting broken down into 3 parts: teacher evaluations or other letters of recommendation, put it that way, your essay, your transcript. And in general application, resume, work history, all that kind of stuff. So about a third of your application is you, and they're spending about a third of that time looking at what you have to say about yourself. The nice thing about that is it gives you an opportunity to showcase aspects about you, whether it be accomplishments, things about your personality, philosophical endeavors and arguments that you have with people, creative writing histories and all that kind of stuff, published poetry, works and things that you want folks to wear about, savor of animals, preserver of life,
Yeah.
maybe. Billy swimming okay? Okay. Addie's was looking a little sluggish yesterday. I think we need to switch some water. But whatever parts about you that don't come across within the application, within the numbers from the teachers, from the guidance counselors, that's the opportunity that you have to try to convey and communicate through your college application. In all honesty, I don't think your college application for most of you is going to determine whether or not you get to go to school. I think we're pretty safe that if you want to go to school, you'll be able to get it.
Wait a second.
We hope. We don't know,
Really
but we're hoping. What it could determine, though, certainly could be for some of us, you know, you're going to have some tiers of schools. You have this is a school that I think I can get into. This is a school that I know I can get into, which it's important to still apply to those in case you need them. And then there's the schools that, hey, these are the ones that I would like to get into. You could write yourself into a school. I don't think you're really going to necessarily write yourself out of too many schools, but I think you certainly could write yourself into. Although if you misspell college, 17 times,
Yeah.
whether
Or
you
my-
write prostitute,
Yeah,
that's going
that's
to
it.
take you out. But it's certainly something that can work to your advantage. It even could be things like getting into the honors college. Could be some things that opens up opportunities for grants or scholarships and things of that nature. So it's something for you to use to your benefit. I don't think it's an aspect that you need to fear, but it's still an aspect that you want to take seriously and give it the appropriate time and consideration so that you can try and help yourself out as much as possible. So, just comments and things that people have kind of said over the idea. I think this is a big thing. Essay gives us something that the numbers don't necessarily reveal. So you're trying to look beyond an SAT and ACT, AP exam scores, GPAs, and all that kind of stuff. It's something that, gives you the ability to showcase aspects about yourself that you certainly want to get across. Broken up here into two parts, do's and don'ts. We'll see if we get through the whole entire do list. If not, we'll be able to do so tomorrow. Here is, I think, besides writing about yourself, this is the part that students struggle with the most. You want to try to keep your focus as narrow as possible where you are trying to prove a single point. So the difficult aspect for you is trying to determine, well, what is that point that I want to get across? You very well may not know what that is right now, and that's okay. And certainly the types of points are going to vary depending upon the prompt that you choose with. But the big thing is you're not going to write about a whole life story, okay? You're not going to give a whole rundown of everything that's happened for you in the last 15, 16, 17 years. Weren't we talking about drywall like a week or two ago? And you said you know how to drywall because you did a mission trip?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that?
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
Kentucky.
Okay. When was that?
June.
So this past,
This past
okay,
June.
a little less than a year ago.
Yeah.
There's no way that Kate's going to cover through a whole mission trip that she took in June in a 650-word essay. So, even like this mission trip was a realization for like number 5, an eye-opening experience. You're not going to be able to cover all that because by the time she gets through the introduction, you probably have 450 words. What she could end up writing about, and certainly not forcing her to do so, there could have been a singular moment, experience, aspect of that trip that ended up being a realization for you, or an obstacle that you overcame, or some kind of important element that you want to try to get across. So I think for a lot of us, it's number one. Okay, what's an event? What's an experience that that we have had, that we've encountered, that is significant to us? But then, what is a specific element of that larger event that you really want to try to get across? So, writing about being, on stage crew is all well and good, but you trying to cover that whole experience isn't going to work. It's getting into the real specifics of some kind of aspect. So, FBLA isn't going to be your thing, but maybe there's a part about a competition, that could be kind of part of your thing. Lacrosse isn't what you're going to be able to cover, but there could have been a moment during a practice, during a game, or something like that you'd be able to get into. A fear that some folks have is, I haven't gone anywhere. I haven't gone to Kentucky, or I haven't gone to New Zealand, or some kind of exotic place, or I haven't, my family gets along pretty well. We haven't had these, big clashes that people talk about and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to worry about that, but it's finding, what's that kind of experience, what's that event, what's that realization, what's that moment that you think is a pretty good indication of who you are, the way that you think, the way that you kind of view yourself.
Can I get like a good frame of reference for where 650 words will get you?
If you were type like double spaced, Times New Roman and all that kind of stuff. If you had a heading, underline heading and all that stuff up at the top, which you won't need to, but for your kind of frame of reference, you're looking at about a page and probably 3/4. So it's a decent bit, but it's not a lot. I mean, it would be, most of you definitely write more than 650. All of you write more than 650 words for a TWA. And with that, it's the college essay, but it's not an essay in the sense that, where's your thesis statement? You're not going to have one. You're just going to kind of jump into it right away. I bet most of us will be at like 3 paragraphs. And that doesn't really mean intro, body, conclusion, but I bet they'll just kind of be like where there's some breaks, where there's separation. But you're pretty much going to dive into the deep end and get into what's going on. Because if you set it up as, well, let me tell you all about myself, you're going to be way beyond the 650 words.
Weren't our independent reading journals like 500?
Yeah, that was the minimum. So it was, a lot of you were, I would say, in that probably 600 to 800 word reference point. So I think if you hit 2 pages, you're going over 650. But yeah, right around there would be it. If it's single spaced, single sheet of paper.
Yeah.
For some common app, I believe you still upload your essay as a digital. Some schools are doing things where where you, like Pitt does this, where you have to put your essay like in a text box. So they'll do things where they do a word count, but they'll also do character counts. So you could come across an essay where they go, you can't have more than 2,500 characters, or 3,000 characters. So that includes spaces, apostrophes and all those things. So that does tend to be a hard limit. And people know when they look at it, what 650 words, are. If they know that you've gone beyond it, I don't think that means you go into the, you're not coming in pile, but they can also tell that you're not doing what you were supposed to do. You're trying to kind of fudge it a little bit. So, focusing on what that message is that you want to get across is the key thing. And certainly this will be some things that we kind of have with conversations. But where folks really kind of start to struggle is you don't want to get so involved in telling a detailed story that the important message gets, kind of buried within it. Certainly details are going to be significant, but you want to make sure they're details that are going to be appropriate to whatever that point is that you're trying to get across. Try to keep it personal. That doesn't mean that you have to, expose everyone's skeletons in the closet and all that kind of stuff. But you want to give them an opportunity to learn about you. There used to be a prompt where where there was one, describe a person who has truly inspired you, and thankfully they have removed that prompt. Although with that freebie question number 7, you could write about a person who has truly inspired you. I would be careful about it because those essays turn into essays. Now you're writing about that person. So if Sam goes, Mr. Kane has really inspired me to greatness, it starts to turn into, you're trying to get me into college. I've already been there. I don't need to go there. You need to go there. So the big thing would, if you go with, a person who has inspired you, which, hey, if there's a coach, if there's a teacher, a parent, loved one, whatever, that's fine. But make sure you explain how that person has greatly impacted you. So maybe there's a person on the mission trip that you realize is going 24/7, 100% of the time, all the time. Then share us how that has changed the way that you approach things, that you did before, so that you're focusing on your story, not someone else. Prove your points. You'll hear the don't tell me, show me, kind of idea. So that's where you want to try to have vivid and specific facts, events, examples, and all that kind of stuff. So you certainly want to let the idea unfold within the details. I do think you can certainly go kind of overboard with this, so those are things that we'll just kind of keep an eye on. But generally, if you avoid details, people tend to fall into the cliche statements, where now all those ideas sound pretty much the same. So this was a learning experience for me. This opportunity opened up new doors that I never thought I would be able to see. I want to make a big difference in people's lives. You say that stuff or write that stuff over and over again, wow, and just go into the I've already read this kind of pile. I want to the world
one person at a time, you know.
I don't know what that means. What does that mean? What? Change the world one person at a time?
Like,
you-
you're gonna change the whole, like, you're gonna change the earth, but just one second, one person.
So, mention avoid the cliche generic, and I'll give you some list of specific ones to write down a little bit later. We're not at that point yet. I want to help people. I've gotten so much out of life through the love and guidance of my family. I feel that many individuals have not been as fortunate. Therefore, I would like to expand the lives of others. Blah 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 blah. It just sounds generic because that kind of thing is prepackaged and over again. My mom and dad stood on plenty of sidelines till their shoes filled with water, or their fingers turned white, or somebody's golden retriever signed his name on their coats in mud. That kind of commitment is what I'd like to bring to working with fourth graders. Signing your name in mud, all that kind of, if it's rubbing up against you.
Oh, I thought it said shaking.
I don't think that you would write every single sentence or paragraph like that because it's going to get a little bit over the top, but it has more of a personal feel to it than what this does. One of the things that folks kind of have questions about is what should my voice sound like as you were writing, that overall tone. You do want it to be personal. It is not a formal academic essay, so you can use things like contractions, you can use I, me, my, and all that stuff. At the same time, you are writing to an academic institution, you're trying to advance yourself academically, so I think, sophistication, being specific with your word choice or being precise with those things should be good. Didactic could come across well and things like that. So you don't want to sound as if you are a fourth grader trying to get into college, but you don't need to sound as if you are, a literary professor at an Ivy League school that is dumbing down his or her vocabulary to talk to the normal people. Chances are it's more like a grad assistant college student who is reading your essay. It is not the dean of admissions. If your essay is getting up to the dean of admissions, either they're really worried about something, is Emily really the type of person that we want into the school, or, Ben has worked his way so far up that who thought that this guy would ever get accepted to this school that we just have to verify it with the dean before we allow him in. It's generally a person who's probably working in the office to get some money, to help pay for grad school. So you're probably writing more to a 20, 21, 22-year-old as opposed to a 64-year-old tweed jacket with elbow patches, classy sweater vest.
That's who I dream to be.
Argyle
More to
sweater
me.
vest has to be
Yeah.
Is the person in a leather-bound chair sitting next to the sitting next to the fire, smoking a pipe?
Yeah.
Doubtful.
I guess the
If
best
so, that's a really nice admissions office that person is working in. Oh, and then make sure you know your subject. So if you're writing to Syracuse because you want to major in international business, it would be important to note that, hey, does that school actually have that major? Because if you're writing to the school and it seems that you're not aware of it, they're probably going to put you in the no list. At the same time, make sure you are not writing, I have always dreamed of going to the University of Pittsburgh. Every day as a young child, I would look at the Cathedral of Learning. All my family goes to Pitt.
Why are you making fun of me?
Yeah.
I was gonna say you mean Anna like saying you.
Yeah.
Hey. It's a good school to like.
It's fine that you like it. That's why you're applying. Like they know you like the school, or they know you're at least interested in it. It doesn't have to turn into flattery that this will be the best experience of my life, because now you're just pleasing them. And I think sometimes people fall in the trap of I'll write what they want to hear. What they want to hear is stuff about you. So get that idea across. Just because you accepted my brother means you have to accept me. Also, not the or sister.
Is that
We're going Grove City.
You're gonna write
A joint.
Yeah.
Joint
That's
essay.
the first thing
We actually get 1,300 words.
Already kind of said this one, 650 word essay into a total autobiography, it cannot happen because you start to focus on things that aren't really pertinent to the question. So make sure, and this is the big one, I would say make sure that every sentence in your essay exists for the sole purpose of answering the question or conveying the idea that you want. People will then go, could I use to be verbs, or do I have to eliminate them, and all that kind of stuff. there's not a rule that, you know, if you use is, was, were, that they're going to knock, you know, points off or things like that. However, I would say when you eliminate to be verbs, your sentences tend to be more concise and precise. So if you're worried about a 650 word count and I can eliminate 17 to be verbs, and that gives me then 2 sentences worth of content that I otherwise could not get across, then yeah, that's a pretty good you know, thing to do. Also, that'd be a reason that you should use contractions. Would not, 2 words. Wouldn't, 1 word. Take the 1 word. You know.
So we can use contractions?
So long as, you know, again, it doesn't turn into like an overly informal, but I don't think they're gonna go, oh my goodness, she wrote don't. You know, kind of thing.
Good job.
And
I was gonna ask, so when you're applying to college, I know there's an essay, but is there something else where like you can write like what you've done in the past?
For-
a little bit about it.
I mean, there's every application is going to vary. So, like for the Common App itself, you're just doing this one essay. But certainly, when you're filling out an application, you're going to be putting down work experience, athletics, activities, you know, your GPA and all that kind of stuff. You don't want the essay to turn into a resume
Right,
because they already have that information.
yeah, because I don't want that was my main question because like I know like what Kate said, if you are like let's just say like a triple legacy at a school, that can help you get in.
Right.
But
But
like
they
if,
were-
if you don't want
They
The
would
app, the
know.
application, they would know
They
because
would
the
know,
application
okay.
kind of highlight. Or if
Okay.
you're a you know a 3 letter varsity athlete,
Right.
they know that based on the application. Now,
okay.
if there's so you don't need to tell them that you can play lacrosse for the sake of playing lacrosse because they know.
Yeah.
But if that experience, there's something from that experience that you think they should know more about, or that really helps convey who you are, then by all means go ahead and do that. But any of those kind of details, they're certainly going to be aware of.
Okay.
Sentence structure, syntax, you kind of want to mix it. Remember, transitions are not limited to words like nevertheless, furthermore, consequently. We'll go over what some words would be and phrases that you could use. Go hopefully beyond moving on, although you haven't used that one, Sam, in at least a little while.
Yeah.
That's good.
He says, he says
But
to me
varying,
that
word choice, sentence structure, all those things tend to be good. Keeps it fresh.
Might be a dumb question, but these essays set up like an intro, body paragraphs, conclusion, or is it more just like
You're jumping into it right away. So like you're not worried about a hook.
Okay.
Who knew that hanging drywall would change who I am? And you just get into it right away. Because if you are worried about setting up that introduction, every single sentence is no longer crucial to that point that you're trying to get across. Active verbs was kind of talk about that, hey, the active voice, getting rid of the to be verbs is going to be shorter and more direct. So instead of the tray of food was dropped, the waiter dropped the tray of food. It just gives it a cleaner voice and things of that nature. The conclusion is going to be your last chance to persuade or impress the admissions office. So make it interesting for a long-lasting impression. Avoid that kind of summarizing feel where, and this is everything now that I have kind of done. So you do want to make sure that your lead hooks the person, but that's not going to be starting off with kind of like that statistic or a rhetorical question or famous quote and things like that, but more of how in the world did drywall, determine who Kate is, or that science project that blew up in your face, when you had, I don't know, ketchup and oatmeal on the kitchen ceiling, that failure that turned into a success might be something that could be interesting to take a look at. The big thing is you trying to come up with, over, I'd say the next 2-3 days, think about who you are, think about how you like to identify yourself, think about moments that you think have kind of shaped. They don't have to be out of this world, wow, I can't believe that person did that. But what are some moments that have just played a role in who you are?
one time in
What'd you
Venice-
write about?
Talking to your science teacher, where something that, honestly, that you get worried about for like 2 or 3 days, but you went through and did it, and ended up being something significant. I have no idea.
How many sources do I have to say?
How long my work session would have to be?
And cite sources though, if you like are doing some involved research.
I mean, if you were to, like, say you, I wouldn't want you to include like a famous quote by a person to start your essay,
Yeah.
Just for the sake of having a famous quote. Now, if there is a word or if there's a sentence, an idea that a certain writer or songwriter has done that you kind of live by, sure, you could go ahead and include that song there. If you did include something, just say who it is.
Yeah.
You know, John Lennon, you know, Vladimir Nabokov. You don't have to then do a works cited page or just attribute who it's to.
If I were to do the number 4, where it's like identify as a problem you fixed, or would that be so disassociated from myself that it wouldn't